A pack of Oligocene predators fights over a fresh kill. The meal is violently interrupted when a foot the size of a dining table slams into the dirt beside them. The predators scatter, but the giant doesn't even notice them. Tracing that massive, pillar-like leg upwards reveals an animal, ignoring the chaos on the ground entirely, casually grazing from the tops of the tree canopy. To put the sheer scale of this creature into perspective, a fully grown male African elephant could walk comfortably underneath its belly without scraping its back. We are looking at a living machine that carried 20 tons of mass. You might assume a beast this large is a dinosaur, but Paraceratherium is actually a rhinoceros, a completely hornless rhinoceros that pushed the structural limits of terrestrial mammalian biology to the absolute breaking point. Terrestrial mammals are inherently disadvantaged when it comes to extreme gigantism. They simply do not possess the biological toolkit that allowed prehistoric reptiles to reach gargantuan sizes. Dinosaurs utilized a system of hollow, air-filled bones that kept their massive frames relatively lightweight. Mammals have incredibly dense, heavy bones, and our skeletons are bound by strict, rigid architectural constraints. By all conventional laws of biology, a 20-ton mammal should either collapse under its own weight or starve from the sheer effort of moving. To survive, Paraceratherium had to evolve into an extreme biological engine. It required radical, specialized biomechanical hacks to carry and fuel that immense weight across the ancient Asian scrublands. The first engineering problem is gravity. The evolutionary solution is a strategy called graviportalism, which literally means weight carrying. Instead of the angled, bent-knee joints we see in fast-running mammals, graviportal animals stack thick, vertical bones directly beneath their center of mass. Look at the math of these limbs. The radius, ulna, and femur grew exceptionally thick and dense. This provided exactly enough cross-sectional area to take 20,000 kilograms of compressive stress and drive it straight into the ground, keeping the force safely below the threshold where mammalian cortical bone fractures. But it didn't completely copy the elephant's blueprint. While elephants use a fleshy heel pad with shortened foot bones, Paraceratherium retained the relatively long three-toed setup of its smaller, more agile rhino ancestors. This created a rigid, triangular base, granting it necessary stability on uneven terrain. By transforming its legs into perfectly vertical, hyper-dense pillars, this rhino successfully supported the weight of 4 modern elephants without shattering its own skeleton with every step. The upper half of the animal faced an even tougher structural hurdle. Nearly all mammals, from mice to giraffes, are strictly constrained to having exactly 7 neck vertebrae. To build a neck that reached 2.5 meters long, Paraceratherium had to drastically stretch each individual bone. A neck that long and heavy creates a tip-in hazard. To mitigate the mass, the vertebrae developed hollow chambers called pleurocalls. By removing heavy bone tissue where it wasn't strictly needed, the skeleton lightened its load while maintaining the structural integrity of a cantilever crane. Massive nuchal ligaments attached directly to deep pits in these vertebrae. They acted exactly like industrial crane cables, automatically hoisting up a massive skull that measured nearly 5 feet long without constantly draining the animal's muscles. This cantilevered crane enabled a highly efficient feeding strategy known as vacuum cleaner foraging. Because walking is incredibly expensive for a 20-ton animal, it minimized movement by planting its feet and using its flexible neck to sweep in massive horizontal arcs. Every inch of the upper skeleton was optimized for this exact motion. It could stand entirely still and hoover up a massive radius of high canopy foliage, burning absolute minimum energy in the process. But a biological machine of this scale demands fuel. Biologists use an equation called Kleiber's law to model basal metabolic rates based on mass. For a resting Paraceratherium, the daily energy requirement was massive. Once you factor in the energy cost of moving and foraging, that number spikes to roughly 350,000 calories every single day. Translated into raw plant matter, a single individual had to consume around 400 kilograms of soft leaves and branches daily just to stay alive. For millions of years, the ecosystem supported this demand. These animals were apex landscape engineers. Adults had zero natural predators, lived up to 80 years, and safely traveled across home ranges spanning 1,000 square kilometers. Then the Oligocene climate began to cool and dry. The lush, thick forests across Asia slowly withered, replaced by sparse, seasonal woodlands and open grasslands. The dense canopy this giant relied on began to thin out. The killing blow arrived with a new competitor. Early elephants, called gomphotheres, migrated into the region. These animals acted as biological bulldozers. They stripped bark and actively knocked down the few remaining tall trees to reach the leaves, permanently destroying the very food sources Paraceratherium needed to survive. Paraceratherium proves that pushing biology to its absolute extreme can make a creature functionally invincible to predators. But when a 20-ton body requires a specific, disappearing forest to fuel it, that same extreme design makes it incredibly fragile to a changing planet.